Well, the grapes of wrath showed the Okies streaming into the Golden State, California, the land of promise. Well, you could call it a modern-day exodus, as those same people, Californians, are leaving their homes and heading for another state, Texas. Paul Strand is in both of them to show why.
It may be a state of stunning beauty and wonderful weather, but people are still leaving California in droves. Lifelong resident Sylvia Beltran will soon join them.
It breaks my heart because if to live here in Southern California, you can be at the beach in an hour and you can be up skiing in an hour.
Those positives haven't stopped some 3.5 million residents deserting this state in the last 30 years. The top reasons? A bad business climate, high taxes, plus bad government. And those leaving believe it's going to get worse, not better. Beltran was recently driving to Arizona.
We saw one van coming into California, and we saw probably a half a dozen vans moving out.
Voters are voting, in a sense, with their moving trucks.
Meredith Turney complains California is the worst of the nanny states.
The legislators in Sacramento think that they know better than the public how you should be running your life. And that kind of mentality, I just couldn't deal with that. I want to live in a state that respects my freedom.
She says state lawmakers introduce 2,000 laws a year.
2,000 new laws that those legislators believe that the people of California need to abide by.
And this pro-family lobbyist says they treated her horribly.
It was very common for me to go into the Capitol building and testify on pro-family policies and be called a bigot and be called ignorant.
It was that kind of thing that made Linda Freeman's family head back to Texas after living near San Francisco for just 18 months. She says she was constantly confronted by a harsh, judgmental attitude.
A very prosecutorial mindset. And I don't mean the government, just the government. I mean the people. If you use plastic bags, we're going to call the authorities. If you buy purebred dogs, we're going to call the authorities. If you give your children gluten and milk, we're going to call the authorities. These are your neighbors.
Her homeschooling Christian family found trouble right from the start.
Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, yay. Christian, boo.
They're just a very nanny state mentality. If you're not raising your children according to the way that we believe you should be, then we'll take your children from you.
Out there, I just found it to be very oppressive and a little scary, because from prosecution really flows persecution.
It's that kind of atmosphere that has Beltran planning to leave as soon as she and her husband can retire, possibly to the Lone Star State.
California is losing a lot of employers to Texas. I want to go see why.
Former California lawmaker Chuck DeVore says it's because Texas is so pro-business, while the Golden State taxes and regulates companies near to death. For example,
the average small business in California is hit for about $134,000 per year in compliance costs to comply with the regulations in the state of California.
Dozens of companies are considering packing up and leaving. Dozens already have. Even as we've been here in California for a couple of days, we've heard about more businesses pulling up stakes right now. We found one of those businesses right here in the small town of Shiner, Texas, owned by John Harrington, a man who California so infuriated he had to leave. He was a Christian owner of a gun business. 3 strikes to many in the Golden State.
A business is a necessary evil in the state of California. A gun business is just plain evil, and a Christian in the gun business is an enemy of the state, practically.
He says he was often characterized as an unenlightened barbarian, but he considers that ironic.
I get death threats on a regular basis from the enlightened ones. Kill yourself with your gun. I hope somebody kills you.
Harrington says he loves being back in his home state of Texas, where it's pro-gun, pro-freedom, and pro-business.
Newsflash, the government doesn't create jobs. Barack Obama doesn't create jobs. I do. Guys like me do. And Texas gets that.
In just this century, Texas has created more than 1 million new jobs. California's lost more than 500,000. From 2004 to 2010, 680,000 people moved from other states to Texas, a whopping 185,000 of them Californians.
It better be the future of America, because frankly, I don't see how this country can continue to prosper if it doesn't become more like Texas and less like California.
We came back to Texas for freedom. One word, simple, freedom.
Paul Strand, CBN News.
And I want to point out the Texas Chamber of Commerce did not pay for that spot.
No, but those numbers are pretty
They really are
significant.
extraordinary.
I mean,
Texas is a wonderful state. I have 3 made in Texas grandchildren, and I think it's wonderful. We had a TV station in Texas. It's just a nice place to be. They're just wonderful people and fabulous experience.
Yes.
And also delightful restaurants. They got Dallas some of the best restaurants, and Houston.
Austin too, I think so.
Austin too?
Austin too.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, Texas is a good state. So anyhow, well, we've got a lot of friends in California, but I know some of you are suffering.